Hello, my name is Owen, and welcome to my reading wrap up of January 2025. We're already a 12th of the way through the year, ladies and gentlemen, and soon we'll be wondering where all the time has gone. Okay? January, one of the coldest, one of the most dreary, one of the most dreadful months of the year, in my humble opinion. Okay? But as a reading experience, I would say January is a very solid month. It's not, I wouldn't classify it as a slow month, but we've certainly had faster months in terms of pace. And as an overview, we finished 2 books in January. We read a total of 1,613 pages. But I would say the things that happened outside of like the actual reading of the books are in some ways more exciting to me. And we'll talk about what I'm talking about, okay? Rest assured, I will be talking about myself in this video. So the books that we finished was Wind and Truth. That took us the majority of the month to get through. Bit of a slog, in my opinion. And then we also read Carrie Soto is Back, which that review was posted yesterday. The entirety of Wind and Truth wasn't fit into January. It's not in that 1,600 pages. I think I was around like 400 pages into the book when we started the month, but it is the vast majority of the pages read was finishing Wind and Truth. That review was interesting, and I just want to talk about Wind and Truth for a second here, guys, again. So check out that review if you'd like to know my opinions on it. Overall, didn't hate it, was a little bit disappointed by it, didn't love it, okay? When I filmed that review, I was getting ready to post it. I was thinking, I'm too hard on this. I thought that I was being a hater and people were really going to like this conclusion, had some great moments in it, and I wasn't celebrating them enough, and I was going to look the fool in the comment section. Posted the video. Turns out I'm the most positive Paul on this book that you've ever seen. At least the people that came around my neck of the woods, they hate this book with the burning fury of 1,000 suns, okay? It is fascinating, at least the subsect that was attracted to my video, how much they hate Brandon Sanderson. And let me just tell you, it might be a lot of you guys that hate that book. And you know what? More power to you. I'm not going to make you like anything. It is a little bit dramatic, though, in my opinion, okay? I think, and this is just a statement for everybody, about things in general, especially forms of art like books. If you don't like it, sometimes it's better for you to just like not worry about it, you know? Like people are saying like he's horrible, he's never been good in his life, the worst book I've ever read, never reading a Brandon Sanderson book again, which is valid, but like that he owes you something in recompense for the time that he has stolen from you. You could have quit the series at any time. Maybe you were enjoying it. You could have quit that book at any time as well. I think that the hate is a little bit overblown. I feel like people have got their like hate blinders on. And sometimes too, if you're giving in to the hate, some of your complaints are maybe a little bit overblown, a little bit invalid. I know opinions are opinions, but sometimes opinions are sometimes untrue. Okay, let's be honest, right? Sometimes opinions are untrue. It's not a great book. It's hardly a good book. It has some great moments, has a few good moments. Overall, I think it was structured poorly. The hate on it is a little bit overblown, in my humble opinion, though. I completely understand why people aren't continuing the series after this, but I was just really blown away by the negative response to this book. It's actually insane in some ways. Don't get me wrong, a lot of your guys' complaints are very valid ones that echo my own. Sometimes just amplified in intensity a little bit, but I'm not going to go into specifics here. I've seen some criticisms in this, none really crazy ones in my comment section, which I appreciate that. I don't really attract all the crazy ones, but I've seen like parallel complaints outside in the internet that are just ridiculous. They are ridiculous, and I think we all need to take a step back and realize that he is one author in a sea of many, and sometimes it's better for our mental health to focus our energy not into hate, but into love of other books that are great, okay? And as a reread of that series, I was really deep in the Stormlight weeds for essentially since September, so 4 months, and overall, I'm glad I did that experiment of rereading all those monster books, but I am very, very grateful that I don't have to read another one anytime soon, because those are long books. So I guess what I'm saying is, didn't love it, but surprised how much people hate it, I guess is my overall thoughts about that. But I think the discussion around Stormlight is in some ways, and in many ways, more interesting than Wind and Truth itself. I just thought I'd get that out of there, okay? And now don't turn your hate on me because I don't hate your book as much as you hate it, okay? But understand what I'm trying to say. It's not that serious, guys. It's really not. Moving on to Carrie Soto's Back. Really enjoyed that book, especially after reading thousands upon thousands of pages of Stormlight. Reading a book like that was very, very refreshing to me. I think Taylor Jenkins Reid is a very... and I was going to say like succinct. Succinct isn't the right word for it, but her writing style is she really just gives you just great plot, great characters in a condensed version, relatively short books, and it's just really refreshing to read. Very much knows what she's doing. In the opposite problem of Brandon Sanderson, where he has like no editors and like he just runs wild and just writes and writes and writes and writes. She seems to always have a very, very clear idea of what's important to her story, and she gives it to you all straight. And especially reading some contemporary, like set in the modern, or I guess it was just set in the 90s, but just like some people living their everyday life, doing regular everyday things. It's a great counterpart to reading a lot of fantasy, and it really like refreshes my reading bones, which kind of sets us up for a great February. I feel refreshed after reading that book. And the reason I picked up that book, which is another exciting thing that happened to me in January, I was granted a Barnes & Noble gift card, $75 worth, which you would think that, $75, you can buy a lot of books with $75. At Barnes & Noble, you actually can't buy that many books at Barnes & Noble. You can buy some. You can't buy a lot. If it was a used bookstore, you might be walking out there with the whole store, right? But I bought 4 books with my $75 gift card, and one of them was Carrie Soto's Back, and then the other 3 I'm very excited to read. One is Stoner by John Williams, which we actually did start in January. We read about 7 pages. Then we also got Kindred by Octavia Butler, and then finally No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy. All of these books were not ones that I had planned on reading or thought about reading or even thought about at all in my entire life, but ones that I'd heard good things about separately throughout the journey of my life, and decided to just pick them up on a whim. And I'm very glad I did, because Carrie Soto was great, and I got a good mix of like classics mixed with more like modern stuff. So I read Carrie Soto's Back. I'm going to read Stoner, and then after I finish Stoner, I'm going to read Kindred, and then after I read Kindred, we're going to go to Cormac McCarthy and No Country for Old Men. And I'm excited for all 4 of those books for very different reasons. Carrie Soto was a smash hit. Glad I enjoyed that one as much as I did, and I think all 3 of those books I've heard fantastic things about, so I'm very, very excited to read them all. And like I said, I started Stoner then in January. We're going to definitely finish it in February. It's not too long, and it is like my primary book because I've already started it. And then the other pages that made up that 1,600, I've done something a little bit wild, guys. Wild for me in some ways. We all know I have a complicated relationship with audiobooks. Sometimes I say audiobooks are for me. Sometimes I say audiobooks are not for me. I'm very complex that way. And I feel like I go through like phases of audiobooks. But what I did, which will surely cost me in the end, I did the free trial of Audible, which meant I got a free book from Audible, and I started Project Hail Mary on Audible. So I've been listening to that audiobook. I'm reading it with some friends, so I'm kind of like a forced pace for that, and I'm about a third of the way in. And so far, I'm enjoying it. It's very sciencey, but I'm enjoying it so far. I think it's interesting. I didn't read The Martian, but I saw the movie The Martian. I enjoyed that movie. Wasn't quite expecting this book to be as sciencey as it is, but it's interesting in that way, and that's a little bit different like that. But like I said, I'm a third of the way through that. I'll probably finish it in February. It just depends on how my reading group, how we pace it out. But I'm enjoying that one so far. And then also, because I was on the free trial, I was just perusing the catalogs, and I found something probably stupid, probably dangerous to my reading momentum. Because like I said, a little bit burnt out of fantasy out of reading all that Stormlight. But then I saw, guys, that the Farseer trilogy in the Audible subscription that I have is free. With a subscription, it's free. which meant that I did start a re-listen rather, of Assassin's Apprentice. And before I start Tawny Man Trilogy, I think I want to reread all 3 books in the Farseer Trilogy in audio format. Interestingly enough, the first time I read Assassin's Apprentice, it was also an audiobook. So when I started that audiobook up again, damn if I didn't feel cozy. If I didn't feel like a nice summer day in your childhood, opening up the door, greeting with Fitz greeting you, and that narrator's silky smooth voice. It gave me a rush of nostalgia. It brought me back to where I was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It wasn't that long, but I was in a different place, lived in a different place, was a different age. I was younger, sometimes more naive. But I don't know. It was weird. But anyway, so I'm listening to that, and to commit myself right now to re-listening to all 3 books is a little bit bold. Maybe I'll just do the first 2 because the second one's my favorite and the first one's been the longest since I read it. But I think it might be helpful to get a refresher on where these characters are left off before I go back into the world of Fitz in the Tawny Man trilogy. The only thing is, and the reason why I say it's going to cost me, is because there is no way I finish all 3 of those audiobooks before my free trial ends. So you know I'm going to get dinged for it. You know I'm going to pay whatever it is, $14, $13, $15, $16. I don't even know. I really have to look at that. But I don't want to be paying for that. But if I pay for another month, I do get another free one. But I'm not going to be paying $16 a month on a book. But books at Barnes & Noble are around $16 a piece. I feel like that you just witnessed like my Gollum and Smeagol moment when I'm just talking to myself. But then again, I shouldn't be buying a book every month. So I really need to cancel that subscription as soon as possible. But in the meantime, I guess I'm paying the subscription to listen to books I've already read and also get a free one every month. I guess that's what we're doing. But when I get to Tawny Man, I do want to switch to physical just because I feel like I'd prefer it when I'm listening to books or when I'm experiencing books for the first time to read them. I feel like I absorb things more. That being said, I love Assassin's Apprentice. I listened to it on audio for the first time. This is the debate I have with myself every day about audiobooks. And I just think Audible's a little expensive for me to be maintaining that. But that's what I've been doing, right? So we kind of got back into audiobooks. We started reading Project Hail Mary and Assassin's Apprentice on a reread. And also, too, like doing a reread of fantasy, even though they said I'm not a fantasy, I think it's different. Because I got that rush of nostalgia, I'm like, this is different. Okay, I can do this. And you know what? I might just, because I also have to confirm, part of me has to confirm, do I love this series as much as I say I do? And so far I do. So far I absolutely do. But yeah, Project Hail Mary, Assassin's Apprentice, Stoner are the 3 books that we're currently reading right now. In terms of additional books that we're looking to in February, I'd like to finally get around to this Murakami book. It was at the top of my list before I bought 4 more books to add on top of it. And then also just got a whole catalog of audiobooks to listen to as well. But also, going back to the audiobook conversation, I feel like it feels different, right? I could be reading 2 physical books and listening to 3 audiobooks, and if I listen to them in different places, then it's like I'm reading, there's like no crossover, right? If I listen to one on my walk to work, if I listen to one while I'm at work in a slow period, it feels different. It doesn't feel like I'm reading too many books at once, especially if I'm rereading some. So basically what I'm trying to say is, I'm the smartest man alive, and there's no consequences to my actions, and I think we'll be A-okay. So if you had to expect anything, expect at least 2, maybe 3 audiobooks finished in February. Expect Stoner to be finished, expect Kindred to be started, and expect Murakami to hopefully be started as well. I don't want to, just because it's been on my shelf for a long time, sometimes you just lose your excitement for it a little bit. I can't forget this one. So this will probably be the priority after Stoner before we dive into Kindred. But you know what? We'll see. We'll see. Let me know how your year started in January. My goal for the year was to read 45 books. We are well behind pace. We need to read 4 books a month. That's public math right there. And then, yeah, so we need to pick it up a little bit, but I think we could get there. I think we could get some 5 months in to make up for it. But we'll see. Let me know how your January went. What are you reading? How are things shaping up for you? Is January a slow month for you? Does the cold weather, if you're living in an area where January is cold, does the cold weather slow you down in all aspects of life? Sometimes I feel like it does. Sometimes I feel like I need a little bit more sunlight. But you know what? Every day gets a little bit brighter, which is a good thing. Be sure to like and subscribe if you like the video and want to see more like in the future. I forgot what I say. Thanks for sticking around.